Hello and welcome to the Cultural Curriculum Chat podcast, where we explore the stories, identities, and lived experiences that shape how we show up in the world. I'm your host, Jebeh Edmunds, and today's guest speaks to truth many of us are quietly carrying, that being lost is not a failure. It's often the beginning of something truer. So join me is Tracy Smith, author and creator of Tracy Travels Everywhere, whose work was born out of personal loss, grief, and a powerful midlife awakening that challenged everything she thought she knew about success, productivity, and identity. Tracy, thank you so much for being here.
Jebba, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you and to just share with your listeners my story.
Oh, thank you so much. And let's get to the heart of your story. What was happening in your life that pushed you onto this new creative path?
Um, I was at a new job. And it's crazy because we have these jobs and we fall into them. I tell people, all the young people especially, I'm like, you kind of fall into careers and you don't know where you're going, but that's what you do, right? And you're okay with it. And I was okay with it. Up until 2022, I was okay with where I was at in life. And then I took a new job and I thought like, oh, I needed the money. It was kind of like, a promotion, but it was about money and all these other things. I'm like, this is going to be a good fit for me. And it wasn't. It just was not a good fit for me. And so for about 6 months into that job, I took this first trip. My youngest son was still at home, but what ended up happening was as I started traveling and I was like, this job is not a good fit for me and my kids are leaving and what am I supposed to do? Like I was lost before I was even lost. Like,
I
and
hear
so
that.
I
Yeah.
think that it's not that it all started with that job, but I think that that job is what really opened my eyes that I needed to change. I needed to do something and I needed to figure out what that was. And I didn't know it. Like I legitimately did not know in March of 2022 what that was. So the
Mhm.
journey I went on helped me figure out what that was.
Yeah. And especially that journey of, you know, what did you lose? About with the job, you weren't happy, but I like that you're lost, but you couldn't quite like articulate what exactly was your next step.
Yeah, because so when I got divorced, I've always kind of have wandered trying to figure out who I was. Like, so, when I was in college, way back when in Buffalo, I I didn't really know what I was doing. And then after I left college, I moved. Like I moved to California, I moved to Colorado, I moved to Connecticut, I dated some guys, got involved with some guys. And I thought like, I was just trying to figure out who I was. I was like, "Who
Yes.
am I?" Like, I'm kind of, like, I'm doing all this movement, and each time, you go to a new place, like the jobs, and you think, "Oh, it's going to be better," or you're gonna figure out what you're going to do. So, eventually, in, late 1999, I met my now ex-husband in Colorado, and, we started a family, and I think we thought, "Okay, I'm onto something, like, this is working, right?" But it didn't really last. The marriage didn't last. We got divorced in 2014. And what happened in 2014 after the divorce was I really didn't know who I was. Like I was mom, but
Yeah.
now I have to share my children with an ex-partner. I have to share them with, an ex-partner's new partner. There's all these spaces of trying to figure out like, well, where do I fit in still, right? Like all of the friendships, the family, everybody that I that formed part of that identity that I was living, it was gone. I mean,
Yeah.
literally in signing those papers, it was just all gone. So then from 2014 to 2022, I was just kind of being mom. I was working and I was being mom. Those were the 2 roles. Those were the 2 identities that I knew I had. And then all of a sudden, the one identity, the working, starts to go bad. And then the other identity is mom. The kids are now empty nesters practically, and that one's gone. And now I'm really like, who am I? Like I didn't even
Yes.
I just didn't even know who I was. I
Yeah.
really didn't.
Wow. And like you talked about with those identities, mom, now, ex-wife, but a new career and still feeling that movement, I feel like that is natural, that natural feeling of loss. Who am I? What is my place? What is my role? And I like how you shared that, being lost isn't a failure, it's an opening, a doorway to something truer. How did you realize that shift in yourself, in that moment?
I didn't. I really
Yeah.
didn't. So I mean, I knew. So one of the things that happened was when I took that new job, I'd always identified as a higher ed professional, right? So if somebody said to
Mhm.
me, "Tracy, what do you do for work?" I'd be like, "Oh, I work in higher ed." It was easy for me. I knew that I'd been doing it for 15 years and I felt really good about it. I was like, "I work in higher ed," and they might ask me even more and I'd be like, "Oh, I do finance, I do administration, I do whatever." Well, in 2022, I was still working in higher ed, but I shifted to a position within the healthcare side of higher ed.
Oh,
And all
okay.
of a sudden, like, people would say, "Well, what do you do?" And I would be like, "I work in higher ed." But then I felt like I had to qualify it. "Well, I work in healthcare." Or I'd say, "I work in healthcare," but I had to qualify it that I worked in higher ed because it didn't fit. It didn't fit the person that I thought I was, right? So I'm kind of like, "Who are you? You're Tracy who's in higher ed. Are you Tracy in healthcare?" I even went to school and got a master's degree in Masters of Healthcare Administration because I was like, I need to feel this. I need to know that this is where I belong, right? So I knew that I was floundering. I knew I was lost. So then I started traveling. My first trip was about 6 months after I started that position. And I just went on it because I had planned it and I had no idea that it would have such a profound impact on my life because I took it and then I came back, and then I went on another trip a few months later, and the next thing you know, like, I just had to keep booking trips. Again, I didn't really think it was solving anything for me, I just knew I had to do it. Like, I knew, I was like, "God, I've got to be gone, I have to do this movement, I have to something's happening to me," but I just didn't know it, and probably it wasn't until 2024 that I really knew something had happened, but by 2023, where I finally started to be like, "Something's going on." So in 2023, I was like, "Something's happening here. I know it. I can feel I could feel something was
Yeah.
happening." And it started with I ended a relationship that I had been in for a year that again was part of this identity. So I ended it
Yes.
and I felt okay with ending it. And then by
Mhm.
2024 rolled around and I was like, "I'm better than okay. I'm good."
Yes.
Like,
Good.
I'm
I'm
great.
moving
So,
on.
yeah, so I don't
Yes.
think it was anything that when I was traveling at the beginning, I don't think I realized I was finding myself. It wasn't until I had been doing it for a while that all of a sudden I was like, "Whoa, okay. There's something here, Tracy, and you need to keep doing it. Whatever it is, you need to keep
Need to
doing."
keep doing it.
So then I
Yeah.
kept doing it.
Yeah, I love that. And it was at a moment in your life that you felt, just hearing you speak, like the most joy, like in
Mhm.
your purpose. So can you share like what are your favorite travels when you were traveling everywhere?
Oh,
And tell us
boy.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so my favorite place is Vietnam. I just y I f I felt like I was home. So the first
Mm.
time I went to Vietnam was in, January 2024. I have to kind of because it was a Christmas one, I had to think when so January 2024 is my first trip to Vietnam. And by the time I left there and I had only spent, like, maybe a week. I'd only been there for about a week or so. By the time I left, I had already changed a trip that I was planning to go on the following, September, which was going to go to Europe. I had already changed it to go to back to Vietnam. So I
Wow.
canceled that flight and I used those funds to buy a ticket back to Vietnam. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that I was going back to Vietnam, and so I went. So then I went and I made a couple of really good friends. They were my tour guides, and actually, so it was the one woman's name is Min, the other one was Lam. I talk about them in the book. And Min, uh, she actually has become a really good friend of mine. I'll tell you why in a minute. But so then when I went back in September, I spent more time with Lam and Min, and I spent even more time because I actually with Lam, I did a tour to Sapa where we went and stayed and explored the mountains and the rice fields and everything like that. And it was just absolutely an incredible experience. So then Min invited me back to the Lunar New Year to celebrate the Lunar New Year with her and her family the last January. So January
Yeah.
2025, I now have made this connection with this person and I went back and stayed with her family and had a really great experience. And 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, she messaged me and she said, "Tracy, I'm getting married and I need you to be there."
Wow.
I
I
know,
mean,
right?
friend for
Like,
life. Wow.
absolutely, and the fact that her family wants they want to involve me, they want to include me in this really personal and celebratory experience. Oh, it just melts my heart. So, Vietnam started as my favorite, and it still is probably my favorite. It's my favorite location to go to, and I have a lot of other favorites. I love everywhere I
Yeah.
kinda go. Morocco,
Yeah.
I just went to in November, and I really love Morocco. I love Iceland.
Oh,
But
yeah, Iceland is beautiful.
Vietnam,
Yeah.
yeah, Iceland's oh, it's so that was my first trip, so I got a
Yeah.
tattoo, and the last time I was in Iceland, actually, I got a tattoo, and it's a map of the world, and where Iceland is, it's a little heart, because
Oh,
it's where I
neat.
kinda say it's my love affair with traveling began, because it was
Yes.
my first stop. Yeah,
Oh, I
first ever.
love that. Oh, and just like you said, this creative awakening, rebirth, meeting lifelong friends overseas, going back to their life events. I mean, how did this creativity, by your movement, even how you said it, you've been moving your whole life after college and just embracing that movement a part of you, like, and that I think it isn't a failure. It isn't like you're searching in the sense for why am I moving, but you are meant to move, to
Right.
connect with people. And yeah, just share with us, like how has that helped you in this creativity rebirth with your book as well? Yeah.
Yeah, so as I was writing the book, it I didn't really, I'd write on Facebook a lot, like, I would share kind of my travels, and then as I traveled more and I was feeling what I was learning about myself, the my posts would start to get much more reflective, right? Like, I could see how my posts were changing. They weren't just like travel logs, like, "Oh, I went here, I saw this, do this, ate this," they became much more about what I was getting out of the experience. And so, when I sat down to try to write the book, I was challenged by my editor to really think about what did these experiences do for me? Like what, you know, what did I learn from all of that? And I didn't at first I wasn't really certain. So then he had me ask this question. He said, who are you writing for? And I sat down to answer this question, and it took me a little bit. And at first, it was like a little piddly paragraph. And then I started to realize I'm writing for there's these women out there like me. And not just women, there's men too, but there are these women out there like me where we we put kind of like we put ourselves on hold, right? We say, okay, we're having a family, we're having a career, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're taking kids to cheer and track and baseball and hockey and God knows everywhere else that we're going. We're cooking dinner, we're taking care of the dog, and we kind of put ourselves as like Tracy on hold, whoever that person is. And so for me, when I started to think about who this audience was, I started to realize it's all those women out there that are putting themselves on hold And it made the story for me come more to life because I was like, "Oh, okay, these are all the ways I put myself on hold, and now these are all the things that I've learned about putting myself on hold or while I was there." So, I learned that, these lessons they might have been small and I could have easily missed them. So by writing this story is how I figured out like, wow, Tracy, okay, you have community, right? Like that friend Min, when I went back to Vietnam, I was not scheduled to see her at all. So when I went back in September of 24, she wasn't like, it's not like I went back as a to take a tour with her. I was doing a tour with Lam, but not with Min. And I called her up and I said, "Hey, Min, I messaged her and I said, "Hey, Min, I'm going to be in Da Nang, these dates. Do you think you want to get together?" And she was like, "Of course." And the next thing you know, it's me and her and, five of her closest friends. And we're at a soccer match cheering a football match,
Yeah.
cheering on her local team. We're at a dance club that night. I'm riding on the back of a scooter with one of her friends, and we're shopping. I mean, like, and the thing that's incredible about it is I spent my whole life not being able to invite myself anywhere. So if somebody said to me, if I heard coworkers say, "Oh, we're going to go to happy hour," or "We're going to a movie," or "We're going to do this," my entire life, I have never been able to say, "Can I come?" Never. I never could. And so the idea that I said to Min, I messaged her and said, "Wanna hang out?" It's just to me, it was like this it was like, "Oh my god, Tracy, you did that. You weren't able to do that, and now you're
Yes.
able to do that." And
That's
so that's how
amazing.
I knew. Yeah, but those are the ways, but I didn't really realize all that stuff until I really sat down to write the book, that that's where that change was coming from. That's
Yeah.
what that change was. It was yeah, it was writing the book was incredibly transformative for me as much as part of the transformation as the actual trips were. They both were part of that change.
There's that old African proverb, to travel is to learn. And you just touched on it. Like you're going with community. You're not a stranger in a different person's land. You are embracing and being immersed into things that are different from you. And I love how you even thought about when you were writing your book. There's so many other Tracys out there,
Mhm,
that are stuck. They're still trying to figure out who they are because of the outside pressures. You have to be these roles. This is who
mhm,
you are. All of the pressures of having the perfect, vlogging thing by the pool and how you use those experiences to share and shed a light that there's more to who you are in your own bubble, bust that bubble and get to meet people, and be embraced by different
I
cultures. I
think a
just
lot
love
of
that.
people, like,
Yeah.
even my kids who, they obviously know me so well, for my oldest son is 24, my youngest is about to turn 20, and I guess the oldest will be 25 soon, but, the thing is, even they didn't know how much I was suppressing of myself and what I wanted, so when I started traveling, that first trip, I don't think they were really worried about that first trip because I was going to, like, Iceland, Norway, I went to Ireland on that trip as part of a group tour. I don't think they were so worried. They're just kinda like, "Okay, that's cool, mom. You're going on a trip, right?" And then the next trip where I was like, "Well, I'm going on another trip, and this time I'm going to Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Istanbul, Doha," and they were like, "What?" Like, "What do you mean?" Right? And I was like,
Mhm.
"Well, I don't know, like, it just I'm going that's where I'm going," right? And so I think even them, they only knew me really as mom in that bubble, and so when I started doing all this stuff, they were kinda like, "Mom, are you okay? Like, what's going on with you?" Right? Or, like, I had
Mhm.
friends who they had only known me as mom who went to work every day, came home, cooked dinner, took carpool, or drove kids wherever
Yes.
they went, and, kinda sacrificed every as much as I could of myself for them. They only knew me as that. So then one friend just texted me yesterday and because she read the book and she said, "Tracy, I had at first I thought you were crazy." She's like, "But now I get it." And she's like, "I get
Yes.
who you are and what you are doing." And I was like, "Yeah, that person was just waiting to come out." And
Yes.
so now I tell my kids, I'm like, I need this. Like, it's a visceral need to go do this
Mm,
because it just feels like it's such a part of who I am now.
yes.
I'm that other person, but this is who I am too. And
Well,
it's
you're meant to be. Yeah.
yeah, like I need
Yeah.
all of it. I'm
Yes.
not throwing away being mom. I gave
No.
up a trip in December to go hang out with my kids and go do stuff with them. So I'm not throwing that other piece away, but I'm
Yeah.
also including this new piece. And now
Of you.
that's all me, right? It's all
Oh,
me.
I love that, Tracy. Oh my goodness. And so many women are in your space right now that are at that cusp of, okay, and I'm counting down the days too. I'm not wishing it away, but yeah, I'm starting to launch my firstborn, out into the real world. He's a senior this year and my youngest is a freshman. So, you know, so many of us, are feeling stuck, burnt out, could
Mhm.
use a vacation. They feel disconnected with their partner or maybe leaving a partner, because of how they felt suppressed in their own life. What do you want them to hear today, about if those folks that are feeling that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want them to hear that. Like, look, I'm not telling everybody that they need to go on a jaunt around the world or they need to, completely upend their life because I don't think that's realistic. I
No.
understand I have a lot of privilege in what I was able to do. That privilege came from having a certain kind of job, of knowing that, I have some retirement set aside, so I definitely had privilege and I recognize that. But I think what I want them to know is it's okay to start small. It's okay. And I didn't know that at the time. Like, I didn't know that those small yeses, like those small wins, are kind of like they're the baby steps to the bigger win, to the bigger yes that might come later on. And so, one, don't give up on the dream. This I had forgotten about it. So don't forget about it. Remember that the dream is still there. If the dream is to own a business, if the dream is to travel, if the dream is even to be a stay-at-home mom, whatever the dream is, don't give up on it. Just maybe you might have to take some small steps to figure out what that looks like. And, in my case, or something that some like what I would tell people is like, when you're deciding to read a book over washing dishes. You're deciding to maybe not respond to a text message immediately because you're sitting with your child or you're petting the dog. Take those as yeses and be like, this is an opportunity where I'm saying yes to myself and then you just continue to build on that because I promise that every single one of them will give you the strength that you need when eventually you want to take the big yes, which says, I'm going to go on a trip by myself, or I'm going to maybe start my own business because you can't just jump in and be like, I'm going to start my own business today without knowing how to say yes to yourself, right?
Yeah.
As a podcast person and entrepreneur, like you understand that like it requires so much of yourself, and so you have
Yes.
to be prepared to be able to say yes to yourself and not feel guilty about doing that. Like, you just have to
Agreed.
do that.
Yeah. You have to, and also to have that plan. I love how you said to start small. Maybe it's a little retreat,
Mm,
an hour or two outside of your town, or finding a business group, a free
yeah,
business class that you could learn how to start, structuring how you want your dream business to be when you go on your own. Because you're right, there's those shifts inside you inherently that are there to say, hey, you're destined to do more. That's your inner
yeah,
challenge, to do more, be out there, connect with people around the world. If you hadn't taken that big yes, you
mhm,
wouldn't have been going to men's wedding in the future, or
right?
meeting men or, and other people along this journey. So tell us more about your book.
Yeah, so
I can't
excited.
wait from author to author. Yes, share with us so we can
So
get a copy. Yes.
yes, The Purpose of, Getting Lost came out today. It is available, widely on Amazon, both you can get an ebook version and a print version. This book is It's not a neat, tiny, tidy story of, I went on some trips. I didn't know who I was. I came back and I know who I was. That is not the book you're about to read. The book that you will read is a book of these stories of how I was finding myself in all these trips, and they're messy. And some of the lessons I learned, I had to go back and relearn, and I had to learn them 10 times because I may be still didn't learn them properly the first time. But they're just my stories of how I started learning to say yes to myself. At the end of the day, that's really what I was learning how to do, because every trip was a trip to say, "Yes, Tracy, you want this, you deserve this, you should do this. This is who you are." Also, so yes, so the book is available on Amazon, and buy it. No.
Oh, yes. We will have that link in the show notes, my dear. The purpose of getting lost. And yeah, I tell you, that is so important. It's not a guide of, oh, this is so easy. This is so fun. Healing is messy, y'all. And
So messy. It's
so
well, when
messy, but it's so good.
it's so
Yeah.
funny because the initial title, when I first started working on this book, and again, it was never really a travel log, but I mean, I guess I didn't really kind of know what it was. And the initial title, this Tracy Travels Everywhere, is kind of like the title. I was like, okay, that works. I traveled everywhere. And then in talking with my team, Paige and stuff, she was like, well, this is more than that, Tracy. You weren't just traveling. And I was like, "No, you're right." So this title of this book is also just so personal to me because not only was I lost physically, because I get lost everywhere I go, I am definitely GPS challenged,
Me
but
too.
also I was lost when I started the journey. Like, right? Like I didn't know who I was, and I went on this journey and I found myself, and it was like I had to be lost in order to find out who I was. So the title of the book is also just very, very personal to me at this point because it just really exemplifies the journey that I've been on for my entire life, but more importantly, for the last couple of years on these trips.
I love that. Oh, and so for us, we will definitely get your book. Where else can we find you, Tracy?
Oh, yes. So you can find me. My website is tracysmithauthor.com. And pretty much if you search for Tracy Travels Everywhere, you will find me. Even Tracy Travels, you'll find me. Those both go to my website. It's probably a little easier to even remember than Tracy Smith. So Tracy Travels Everywhere. I'm on Facebook. I share a lot of my trips on Facebook. I've been sharing about the book launch, and some other stories related to the book launch. I'm also my new favorite place is Substack. And I am on there definitely spending a lot of time writing essays and continuing these conversations about identity and about a belonging and connection and um, choice and love and survival and all these ideas that, I think we really tussle with in our daily life, and we feel very alone because it's not okay to talk about them to anybody except for our therapist, right? So here I'm talking about these things and putting them out there and just saying like, look, I'm not going to apologize anymore for being who I am and for wanting to talk about these things. So Substack is Tracy Smith PhD. Yeah, that's where you can find me over there. But Tracy Travels Everywhere will probably also find me on Substack as well.
Wow, that's amazing, Tracy. And thank you for being open and honest and vulnerable and just sharing with us that, you're not going through this alone. If you're at an inflection point where you're saying, who am I really? It's a really emotional and healing journey that we all need to walk through. And thank you for being that beacon of light for us to read your story
Uh,
and have the courage to move forward. So thank you
I
for
I
joining.
love that. No, thank you so much for having me. And I agree. Just we need to have courage to take that first step. Just
Yes.
you can do it.
Oh, we
Whoever's
can
listening, you
totally
can
do
you
it.
can do it. Yeah.
Yes. And those of you that are listening, please share this episode with a friend who is just at that point. They feel stuck. They might be going through their own grief and feeling lost and not knowing where to turn. And we need them to hear Tracy's sage advice and journey. And I will see you all here next time, same time next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Love it.